Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. With me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be pretty damn interesting. Matt Gaetz, who used to be in Congress, he was a head of several different committees and everything. He was on the Benny Johnson show, and he made a statement that was pretty insane, and it kind of made me do a double take when I saw it. And so I'll break down basically what he said, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. He said that when he was in Congress, he was briefed by a member of the military, full uniform. And he said it was Army, was the branch. And they told him about a secret government program that was a breeding program for captured aliens and humans. Now, the aliens were aliens that were recovered from crash sites that were still alive. And the humans, he said, were people that were captured in either war or taken from the caravans that were coming up through our southern border. That's what he was told. And there was a secret breeding program to try to breed hybrid creatures, like a hybrid race of people that were half alien and half human. He said the reason they did this was to try to create a being that could communicate with the aliens back wherever the hell they are. So basically, they were trying to create a biological communication device, if that makes sense, like someone who could actually communicate with these things. So that's what he said. When he was pressed on it, he said that they tried to verify the story and like run it down, what they were told, and they couldn't determine whether it was credible or not. Now, a couple things on that. One, if it's a secret government program like that, you're pretty much not going to be able to run it down, because the only reason that you would even be made aware of a program like that is because you have the need to know it, right? There's something that you need to do involving that program. There's a need for you to have that information. That's not something you just get read into. Programs like that, even the President of the United States doesn't get read into those unless he has a need to know. And that's one thing that trips people out, that a lot of people don't understand about the government, is there are programs that the president does not know about, that are so top secret that only a handful of people know, the people doing it, and then a handful of people that have the need to know for operational reasons. But just being the president or the vice president or a congressperson or whatever does not guarantee you the proper security clearance to find out about these things. Now, you might think, wait a minute. The president, he would have like top Q level clearance, right? He'd be top of the food chain. That's where the need to know thing comes in, because you can have the very tippy top of security clearances and still not have the need to know. So you're not going to be read into something that is top secret like that. So running it down would be next to impossible, whether it was true or not. You're not running that story down. You're not going to be able to verify that through regular channels. The other thing about that is, when he described it, he didn't say that a whistleblower came and told him this. Okay? He said he was briefed. Now, there's a huge difference in distinction there between the two. A whistleblower is somebody who is coming out, whatever branch of government they're in, whatever agency they're in, whatever, right? They're just coming out and trying to let Congress and the press and the people know that something messed up is happening, right? Edward Snowden would be a great example of a whistleblower. That's somebody who came out and spilled the beans about all the stuff the NSA was doing. That's way different than a briefing. A briefing is when you are officially briefed on something. They come to you and they lay it out for you and give you the information you need to have in an official setting. That's not a whistleblower. It's a completely different animal. So him using that language, that he was briefed on it by a member of the military, right, who was wearing a army uniform. That tells me that if he was truly briefed, that one, he had to have a need to know. Now, he was like on the Appropriations Committee, the Armed Services Committee, stuff like that. So there's a possibility that he could have had a need to know. So that's not beyond the realm of possibility. So one, he had to have the need to know. Two, if he was briefed, that means it was an official briefing, which means you don't have to run that down. That's not something you have to verify. The people that you would verify that with are the people that are briefing you on it. Okay? Because it's a top secret program. There's not a ton of people that know it even exists. So whoever you're talking to, that's who you would be verifying it with. It's kind of dumb to try to verify something from the person that's telling you the thing, right? So if it was a official briefing, that means there's little doubt to whether or not this program actually exists. He said briefing. Now, as I said, he was a member of Congress. He was on the Armed Services Committee and the Appropriations Committee. So he would know the difference between a briefing and a whistleblower. He's not going to misspeak like that, most likely. Okay? So official briefing, which means program does exist. Okay, that's the first tier of this mountain we're going to climb today. So to me, that says we have an official program here. We know that this actually is real, that it's not some nonsense that people are spouting, even though it sounds like absolute nonsense, right? It sounds crazy. And I'm with you. It sounds crazy to me too. But if it was an official briefing, that means that that program does exist. And they were briefing him on that program for whatever purpose that they needed him to be briefed for. What else can we learn from this? Well, we can learn that they have recovered not only bodies from crash sites, which has already been disclosed, but also that they have recovered living extraterrestrial beings from these crash sites. Because they have to have living ones if they're going to do a breeding program. So that's a bit of information there that's confirmed now. That we are in the possession of living alien beings. That's something that was never officially confirmed before, and now that would definitely appear to be the case if he was briefed on it. Second is that they're doing a breeding program in order to create a hybrid offspring that is capable of communicating with the aliens. That must mean that we are not capable of communicating with the aliens right now. So whatever alien this is that we have, that we're trying to communicate with, we don't have the capability of communicating with them yet. Because otherwise, if you could just talk to them, why would you need a breeding program to create a hybrid in order to communicate with them? So that's one of the most alarming parts of this, is there is apparently a race of aliens that are capable of getting here. We have recovered some of them from crash sites, and we can't communicate with them. Now, the lack of communication back and forth is dangerous because we don't know their intent. They don't know our intent if we can't communicate. It's very difficult to get that across because you're in a situation where anything could be seen as a provocation. And if you can't communicate with them, you can't understand them truly. So you don't know what their customs are. You don't know what their beliefs are. You don't know anything. So something that could be friendly to us, a handshake, something like that, could be seen as the gravest insult in their culture. Who knows? That's one of the reasons it's dangerous, because we have zero understanding of their language if we can't communicate with them. That's alarming. So, The questions I have, are there more than one type of alien that we have bodies from and living examples of? Or is it just the one? He doesn't go into it, but that's a question I would have. Another question I would have is, has there been any successes in the breeding program? Because that's not an easy thing to do. You know, you have to be in the same family of animal to breed together. Like, you just can't take like a horse and a chicken and make a baby. That's not how it works. You can do a horse and a donkey because they're both the same class of animal, but you can't do a horse and a giraffe. You could probably do a horse and a zebra because they're in the same family, but you couldn't do a horse and a hippo. You see what I'm getting at? So, us and them, two completely different things, probably. So, it would be interesting to me to find out if it's possible for there to even be a success there. Because I guarantee you they're not the same as we are if they're not from this planet. So if they're not the same as us, how do we ever hope to actually produce some kind of hybrid child? Unless we're not trying to do a breeding in the biblical sense, right? Through the old way, the normal way that you would make a child. Maybe they're trying to do it like through genetic manipulation or something. Maybe they're trying to do a test tube baby. And they're trying to insert DNA from the alien and DNA from a human and create something. That's possible. Has there been any success there? That would be an interesting thing to find out. I would still think that probably the same rules would apply, because whether you're doing it the old way or you're doing it in a test tube, you still got to have the sperm fertilize the egg in order for there to be a baby created. And if it's two completely different creatures, I just don't see how that's going to happen, because we already know that it doesn't work unless they're close enough related that it can work. Like normal things, like I went through all the examples before, you just can't do. So that's a question that I would have about it. Another question is, as far as the human beings. Now, he mentioned being captured in war and being taken from the caravans. So is he saying that the United States government or some part of the United States government is literally snatching people out of the caravans and using them as guinea pigs? Like using them in experiments? And that we're taking prisoners of war and doing the same thing? Is that what this man is saying? Because if that's the case, that's like some serious war crime shit going on. That's not cool at all. That's not like something we can just gloss over. That might be one of the worst parts of all of this. Is if that is true, that is highly illegal. Not just United States law, that's highly illegal worldwide. You just can't do that. And I would say that's like war crime kind of stuff that should be definitely prosecuted if we can find out about it. So that's another part of this that's just not good at all. And I guess it's at this point in the show that I want to make that distinction to everybody. That there's a difference between what our government does, like the top secret stuff that they do, and what the American people actually know about and support. Because I guarantee you could put 100 people in a room all day long, over and over and over again. And every single time you take this poll, I guarantee you 100 out of 100 are going to say, no, that's not cool. You can't do that. You can't just snatch people out of the caravans and use them in experiments. You just can't take prisoners of war and experiment on. That's like stuff that the Nazis did. You can't do that. Right? Nobody's going to support. Well, I'm not going to say nobody would support it, because I'm sure there's going to be a knucklehead here or there that'll support it. There's crazy people around here. So it's possible that you might get somebody that says, yeah, I'm all for it. But normal people aren't going to support that. And the overwhelming majority, 99.9999999% of the American people would say, oh, hell no, you're not allowed to do that. Right? So I just want to make that distinction, that don't gloss over that part, because that part is horrifyingly bad. the shocking bit of, oh man, we have living alien beings that we've taken prisoner, and we're trying to create a hybrid race between them and humans. That's crazy talk. That's so sensational and so shocking that you might be tempted to just forget about the other part. But don't forget about the other part, because the other part is terrible. I mean, I don't think that the taking the aliens part is as bad as that, honestly. Yes, it's still not cool to just go snatch up some alien that crashed and take them prisoner, right? But you can make more of a case for that, at least, because we can't communicate with this thing. We don't know what it is, where it's from, what it's capable of. We don't know what kind of power it has. We don't know what its intentions are. We don't know anything. So the responsible thing to do would be to keep it prisoner, so that if it is going to hurt somebody, it doesn't have that opportunity. We can try to contain it. But that being said, you don't want to be experimenting on these things. That's not cool, because what if they are friendly? And here we are experimenting on them. And then when we do have the opportunity to actually communicate with the rest of them, they're going to say, what the hell? Why, y'all been experimenting on this guy. What's wrong with you? That is a terrible thing to do. Maybe that starts an interplanetary war or something. You know? I mean, think about that. If one of our guys is flying a plane and he crash landed over China or something, right? And then China takes him prisoner. And we finally get to the negotiation point where we're talking to him and we get our guy back and we find out that they've been experimenting on him all this time. We're going to be pissed. We're going to war over that. And rightfully so. You know, and I don't see where it would be much different for an alien race. They would probably feel the same way, I would think. You know? So, yes, that's bad, but at least there's a case to be made for it. But I cannot think of a single reason that it would be okay to grab innocent people and experiment on them like that. Even if you're not trying to do some breeding program with aliens, whatever the experiments are, that's just not cool, man. And the more you find out about the stuff that the people in charge do, the worse it gets. You know, and not just here. You know, this isn't just an America thing, unfortunately. It's a worldwide thing. Because governments all over the world do shady crap all the time. And a lot of governments do worse stuff than we do. But we would think that here in the United States of America, we're supposed to be following the Constitution. We're supposed to be the good guys. So we shouldn't be snatching people up and experimenting on them. We shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. So where I come down on this, do I believe that this is real? Well, Matt Gaetz was a member of Congress. And he was an important member of Congress. He got nominated to be in Trump's cabinet. Ended up dropping out because he just couldn't get past the Senate. They made it. The Democrats made his life hell, and he just said, "Screw it, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with it." But this isn't like some wingnut. This isn't some guy that's just some nut job. This was a respected member of Congress. Okay? He knows the media. He knows what it means when he goes out there and says something like this on a show that has millions and millions of viewers. Okay, it's going to make major news. So do you believe that somebody that knows the media, who is in politics, who is a highly respected person, is going to risk their good name, their credibility completely, and say something that wasn't true? I don't think so. So I think that what he said happened. Now the question has to be, was it actually a member of the military that was briefing him? Was it an actual briefing? Or was it a whistleblower that came forward that told him some crazy stuff and we don't know if it's real or not? He says it was a briefing. But who knows for sure? I made the point earlier, he would know the difference between a whistleblower coming and talking to him and an official briefing. He said the guy briefed him, was in full military uniform, member of the Army. Okay? So to me, that sounds like a briefing. That doesn't sound like just some whistleblower. A whistleblower, they show up and they like meet you somewhere and they tell you what they got to tell you, but they're not coming in full dress uniform and coming to your office and giving you an official briefing. That's not the way whistleblower stuff works. So if it was an official briefing, then unless they were lying to him, then we have to assume that this exists and this is actually happening. Now, is there any precedent for somebody lying to somebody in an official briefing? Yes, there is. They do it to Trump all the time. You got a lot of these holdovers that have been in multiple presidencies that are they're like bureaucrats that are in their positions, and they will come in and not tell the president everything that he needs to know about things. They've admitted doing it. You're talking about people like Clapper, Brennan, Comey, those kind of people will come in there and not give him all the information that he needed to make the decisions he needed to make. And they've admitted to doing it. Okay, this isn't like just me saying some conspiracy stuff. They've admitted it on the record that they did that. They were proud of it, that they did it. And in my opinion, they need to be prosecuted for it. That's treason. That could have led to the death of Americans. That could have led to war. That could have led to all kinds of things. Them not telling the truth to the president in an official briefing. But the point is that there is precedent for that happening. So the question now you have to ask yourself is why? If they were lying to Matt Gaetz in order to make him look stupid, why would they want to do that? I guess the answer to that would be, when did this briefing take place? That's what you need to know. Because if this briefing took place right before Trump nominated him to be in his cabinet, then it could be that they were like some Democrat leftovers that were trying to make him look like a crazy person because they knew if they told him this stuff, he would repeat it. And then he looks like a lunatic and he doesn't get confirmed by the Senate. That's a possibility. You would hope and you would pray that that's not how things work in this country, but unfortunately, that's the way things work in this country. Because for whatever reason, the Democrat Party has lost their mind. They didn't used to be this way, but now all they do is lie all the time. And I don't put it past them at all to pull some shady shit like this. Especially when you look back at all the stuff that Clapper and Brennan and Comey and all of them did to Trump. Just out and out lie, leaving stuff out of briefings and telling him false information. Look what they did to General Flynn when he got in there, So I don't put it past them at all. So that's really the crux of it. That's the question. Do you believe that in this briefing that Matt Gaetz got, he was told the truth? Or do you believe that they were lying to him to try to get him to go out and say what he just heard and look stupid? Now, there's no guarantee he's going to repeat it. Because if he would have came out and repeated that as a member of Congress, he would have went to prison. If he would have come out and repeated that as a member of the cabinet or during his confirmation hearings, he would have went to prison. The only reason he's not going to prison now is because he's no longer in the government at all. So that's why he got away with it, I guess. And he might still not get away with it. It might be some classified stuff that he talked about that he shouldn't have talked about, and he might still get in trouble. But they would have to know that he's smart enough to know that he's not going to be able to just come out and blab that to the media right away. So that kind of diminishes the odds of it being a lie told to him to try to make him repeat it and look dumb. But this is one that you're going to have to kind of judge for yourself. Because we don't have an official answer. We just don't know. All we know is what he said. And I encourage you to go to Benny Johnson's YouTube channel and watch it yourself. You can watch the interview that Matt Gaetz did with him where he says it. and you can hear what he said and you can judge for yourself with all the context of whether you believe he's being truthful. And I believe Benny even asked him, wait a minute, are you being serious? This actually happened? And Matt Gates said, yes, this actually happened. I was briefed by this, and this is exactly what they said, and blah, 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 right? So he was given the opportunity to say, oh, I'm just joking or whatever, right? But he wasn't just joking. He was being dead honest. So, like I said, that's one thing you have to judge for yourself. Where I come down on it, I think most likely he's telling the truth. He was briefed. What happened is what he said happened. And that's it. I mean, whether or not the program actually exists, I have no way to know. But I believe that he was briefed on it. So either it is true or somebody was lying to him to make him look dumb. Those are the only two options. But I believe that probably the program most likely does exist if he was briefed on it. And that's not good. That's something that I don't like to hear, because I don't agree with snatching up rando people and experimenting on them. And I think that experimenting on live creatures that you've captured, aliens, is insane too, because what are the ramifications of that? If the alien species is advanced enough to get here, then they probably have weaponry that is way more advanced than anything we have. And they could probably whoop our ass. So maybe it's not such a good idea to be pissing them off by experimenting on their people. You know, that's just my view. But I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and see what he thinks about this. And then I'll be back after. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Okay. Well, for one, I think this is interesting, and I kind of believe it, even though Matt is. I have my opinions on him, but and just so you know, let's get it right. Most Congress is full of. It's not just it's. You know what the problem is, and I'm just going to say this about democracy altogether and voting. Both parties are just not the same anymore. It's just there's some we'll both disagree to degree, but there's a lot on both sides that just want to make money and see this country keep getting screwed. And it's not just Democrats, where there's a few that I can name right now, but down the other side too. And in the end, that's just how it's always been. People need to start realizing this isn't just something that happens. Let's be fair. The Democrat Republicans act and they're mad, but behind closed doors, they're all hanging out and being buddies together. People forget about that. That's why people were so shocked when, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. That Newsom is a bit. They didn't get along, but they were actually really good friends. He actually was pissed off about it and said some stuff about it. That is, and he was a Democrat. He says they were friends. He had pictures of them. They actually had conversations. Not everybody sits there and hate each other. It might be portrayed that way, but that's just how politics are. You got to remember when you're playing politics. Oh, I hate Republicans. Well, behind closed doors, 25% of that money that they say you take 75 by your own party, but you got to butter the bread on both sides. You got to take 25% for the Republican because you never know who's going to win. If you're like a businessman, yeah, I voted for this guy, but I still gave 10 million to him, but I still gave 2 million to under the table people don't know about. On the other side, that's how politics work. You butter your bread. So I just gave you some money. I still gave you $2 million. That's just how it is. Big people got to realize that's how it works. They've been lying to the presidents forever. The only problem is Obama just threw it out there the other day, and now it had to be briefed. And Trump already said he wasn't allowed to say anything about it. So it's already been coming out. I believe the aliens exist because Jesse Ventura, who was an independent, said it. And then we all know how Jesse Ventura is. We know some of the stuff he's done, and he's done some dumb shit. But he said it after going into Congress. He doesn't believe in anything anymore. But he said aliens existed, and I will say this: as soon as he was doing his show, they went after him. Remember, he was showing all those underground things in Utah and telling the truth, and he got chased out. And they warned him, and he never did the show again. And that should tell you because Jesse Ventura's got a big mouth and he doesn't care, but he said stuff and he still says stuff, but they made it where he looks like a joke. That's what they do. They make people look stupid and they're lying or this and that. Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you example what I think. I think they've been breeding for a while, but it isn't just us. I believe there's other alien races that help us, and I think that's why they haven't attacked us yet because they are protecting us. I know the Greys have been working for us for 100 years or more. It isn't just we got these when we're doing some of that stuff, and he is right. There is only some people that know certain things, and that's it. Not even the president. Now, with this president we have now, I don't know about that because he'll find it out one way or another. And that's one thing I'll say about him is yeah, he'll find it out and he'll run with it, and we all know how he is. So, and we'll leave it at that. But I believe it very much that, you know, he probably is telling the truth to a point. Now it may be some stuff that he might have been told third hand, and a little bit of it, but it doesn't mean it's real. But you got to remember, somebody could have just told him this so he go out and tell everybody what the truth is. And they know that people are going to do this, but the problem is going to be is Matt's what has just happened recently and why he didn't run and got out of Congress is what will happen, and they'll say that he's trying, they'll discredit him like they always do, so it don't matter. But I don't think he's that kind of person to bring up aliens because he's a big Christian. That's one thing I'm going to say. He's a big Christian, and I don't think he's going to do that because he knows the church will get pissed off at him for telling the truth because they don't want that out. Certain churches, not everyone. They've already said in Britain, the Catholic Church is very much involved why they don't say anything. In the Vatican, I know that's the truth. They are making sure we never learn anything, and they know it. If we opened up that Vatican, I won't be surprised there's a fucking spaceship behind under that in Italy. And I believe that we would, and we're going to the moon for the first time in 50 years. There's a reason for that. The Dark Side of the Moon, when Pink Floyd made that album, there was reasons they made that album. Now, a lot of people, but that's one show we need to do about the Pink Floyd and the Wizard of Oz. I don't know if you ever tried that. You remember that rumor, and you played at a certain part when they're flying from the beginning. But I did that, and you know what? It does make fucking sense. But Pink Floyd was a different kind of band. They were very politics. I think they were what from Britain, weren't? I don't know if they were. They were. I think they were UK. Yeah, that's what it was. UK. But they were very much into politics. In Australia, wasn't it? Weren't they in Australia? I don't know which one they were. You know a lot about politics.
I don't know anything about Pink Floyd. I can't stand that hippie shit. So I never really listened to them.
But I mean, but Pink Floyd wasn't really hippie, dude. That was after the hippie era. He was more psychedelic, and he said a lot of stuff about the government over there in Europe. He made a lot. Remember that movie they made? But but if you listen to a lot of the music, it makes a lot of sense. They have brilliant music, dude. Like if you listen to Time from the start of it, that song makes when people listen to it now, they start crying because it makes sense. 10 years go by, and it like that in a flash. That whole song is about you aging and how people don't get it, how fast time goes by. Like and a lot of their songs were like that. And Pink Floyd talked about the dark side of the moon. There's rumors that there's a base behind the other side of the moon, and we were told to stay off of it. Well, I don't know if I believe it, but that's some of the stuff that's been said. I do think it is funny. It's been almost 50 years. Why? We wanted to go to do all this stuff, and now all of a sudden we got grounded. I don't know, man. This whole thing with interbreeding with humans is real. They've been doing this anyway. Just so you know, my mom has the rarest blood. You know what that means. You know what they say, right? They say that they have a gene that's not known to the human race. The what did that not the Nephilim, the other one. Um Starts with an A. The
Anunnaki.
the Aranaki. So my mom supposedly has Aranaki blood, and my mom doesn't get sick other than colds here and there. She never broke bones. She never does stuff like that. It's kind of weird. Um, me, if you notice how I used to be, and I'm getting younger looking, Come on, man. Look what I looked like when I was in 30. I was like 50. I was fat, overweight, and I don't get sick anymore. I mean, I'll get a cold once in a great. I've had one cold in 7, 8 years. I've had the flu once. Um, I'm not immortal or anything like that, but I don't break bones and shit. I have a very unique body. It's weird. And if you ever seen how my body is, my arms are long. Like I got a long wingspan. It's as long as my, or probably long as my legs are longer. It's weird. Like and I don't know, dude. Like me and my mom is a reverend too, like James, but she believes aliens exist. She said she has seen stuff in skies when she was younger, and my mom takes around the cards. You know, if she has, she gets paid for it. I don't have. I don't know what my blood type. She said I don't have it, but it's rare still. But I don't have that blood type as her. My mom uh it's like she has to have that card if something happens. It's hard to get that blood. They pay her. But RO negative, I think it is, or R negative, I O negative, I don't know what the hell it is, but it's one of them. And she has a card and stuff like that. But they say that they have that gene in them. I don't know if I believe that. It is what it is. But my mom's always been attuned to stuff, and she believes in stuff like that. And I believe in aliens. I believe aliens of what we're reason why we're here. I believe they genetically mutated us years ago with when we were about whatever time it was, 10,000, 100, whatever you want to believe what time it was. They interfered. And then what you were saying is they did die, like I think they were messing around with not just humans. I think they messed around with why you had certain monsters running around and they had to kill them because they were able to breed them, but they just couldn't control them. They went too crazy and they just couldn't. They weren't supposed. They were, like you said, abominations. And if you think about it, it talks about that. Abominations were real, and I think they were abominations, and they were failed experiments. And I think now we're playing that same game. And I think some of the stuff that you see flying around, like they saw, a griffin or something, I think we made it. I believe it. I believe we have something to do with it. I think they also found a way, because a lot of people think magic and science are pretty much the same. There's a point to it. And they found something to do. They found a way to do it. Or they opened up a gate. And they've been playing around with that shit for years. We all know that. They've been messing with time for a long time and everything. They want to figure out stuff. But I believe this 100%. I believe James is. I think that the problem is people are going to say, "Well, it's Matt." If they're a Democrat, right off the bat, I already see it. They're going to think politics and not think and listen to this part of it. That's the problem. This has nothing to do with politics. Just so people realize this when you're listening to the show. Oh well, it's him. I don't want to hear. Listen to it and take your own opinion. This has nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats. This has to do with reality that's going on. I don't care if it was Obama telling us this. I would be listening to it because I don't. I no. I don't think Obama is going to go on radio and admit there's aliens. There's too much for him to get. People would laugh at him. And when he said it, I got to believe it to a point. I believe it like Matt. I believe it Trump said that that he had to go classified. I believe that we did a show about that a couple weeks ago. But I believe they all know about this, and they just finally it's just they're tired of lying about it. They're just people are so sick of hearing about um, that they don't exist and they do. I mean, in Riverside a couple weeks ago, they showed these things flying around in the sky at night, and this is down the street from my house, about 40 miles away from my house, 45, and flying around doing circles. What the hell are they? Come on, guys, let's stop with it. Just admit it. Admit it, they're real. Admit we're playing around with shit we're not supposed to. And he's right. We will get our asses kicked if we don't are doing this on our own. We will get an ass kicking like you never. Yeah, we might have their technology. They'll still beat us. Now, I think we've been doing stuff to fight them. I will tell you this, and I do believe there's other races of aliens that help us. I don't think we're alone, bro. I think they've given us weapons to defend our world. They just don't know about it. And I think you saw some of it in Venezuela. They were using that new weaponry. They're doing other things. I believe some of the stuff you see in the sky is some of our weaponry that people think it's alien. And I think we are highly advanced more than what people think. And what I've heard, it's people think, oh, it's only 50 to 100 years. No, it's not. What I heard is about 300 or a lot or more. And if we have alien, it might be 500. So that we might have technology they don't want us to know about. And I think that's what the problem is. They don't want us to keep knowing this stuff. They want to keep playing this game of pretend, and it's not working anymore. And they need to quit playing with the game of pretend and just be honest. Maybe not tell us everything. I get it. We can't know everything, but they need to start telling the American people 90% of what they're hiding, because it's not being honest. You're lying to your own people. You're not telling them the truth. I get it. You can't tell them everything yet. The good stuff, there's some stuff you have to leave out. You want to put people in a panic. But I believe they could be harvesting us. And there could be a whole nother sinister thing about harvesting. And we need to do a show about that. Are vampires really running this stuff? Somebody told me, asked me about this. This is the show my friend was telling me about. And are vampires real, but they're not what we think? And they've been harvesting people, but they don't want anything to happen. And but there's these ancient ones, if they wake up, oh, hell breaks loose. So that was what my friend was telling me. It's some one of these conspiracy things, and I was like, oh, next time I get it, we'll talk about it. Um, but this is probably another a conspiracy that Matt probably does know something. Um, and now they're going to make him look bad. I already know it, but I believe it to a point. I believe maybe it's not 100%. I believe there's probably fabrications, and I believe that he probably was told something, so they would go back. They probably figured he'd go back and say something, and that's what he did. So I believe that they've been doing it for a while. I believe that we're playing with stuff we should not be playing with, because we like Stargate. I believe all movies have some kind of truth to it. I believe Stargate was something that we were messing around that time. And somebody got a hold of it, and he goes, "Well, I can't talk about it, but you guys can plainly make a movie about it. No one will really know the truth. They won't care. They'll think it's just a movie or a book." And I think a lot of movies like that. I think Glass, if you guys seen that movie Glass with Bruce Willis and that, you remember they made three movies and then they were like superheroes, and I believe that to a point. What he said, I believe there's a group of people who make everything look like nothing's going on when there really is. The problem is cameras came out, video. It's getting to the point where you cannot keep on saying everything's AI or something's fake. AI is being purposely pushed because they want to say that's what it is. And I'm telling you, people are not getting what AI is really being used for is a excuse, so people will just think it's fake. And that's what I'm saying. They're using AI to blind people, and that's what they've been doing with this for the last couple years. People need to start realizing they're not getting told the truth. There's worse things coming, and they don't want you to know. And I'm going to tell you, one day they're not going to be able to lie anymore. Something's going to come on your door, and then what? Well, you remember James Hershey and old boy for 10 years have been telling you this shit, and none of you guys are listening. We've been telling you about this shit for how many years? Art Bell told you this shit in Coast to Coast, and George Norrie still tells you this shit, and none of you guys still listen. Art Bell wasn't lying. He had a show when he's one of the most famous shows of all time on radio. It was number 5 or whatever. The guy who went over Area 51 and called and told him everything that was going on, they killed him. They shot him down and that was it. But that was on live, and they tried to go after Art Bell over that shit for years. They were going after him not to play that. He did, and they were pissed. I don't know if you guys ever heard that show. I heard it. I actually heard that show. He played it, and it was one of the craziest things I've ever heard. Somebody flying over Area 51. They shot him down while he was on radio. They unalived him. And because they unalived him on a radio show, that's why it was a problem, because Art Bell was popular, and they didn't realize he had 20 million people listening, and 20 million people heard them commit murder. So that didn't go well. That came out, was in the paper that minute. That didn't. That's why Area 51 is having a lot of issues in the first place, because of that situation. They used can't back then. You didn't have the way of faking shit. He really flew over there and they shot him. And then they said that, I guess they said that that was a mistake. They should have just arrested him because that was on live and people heard it and didn't go well with the American people. Um, I get it, but it's still, you killed somebody for just flying over there. He was just, and he shouldn't have done it. He would should have went to jail, and that's the way they would have handled it now. But yeah, probably wasn't the best idea to do it when they had like 20 million people listening, because that made it not. There's nothing you can really explain. Yeah, well, he was over unrestricted. It doesn't matter. You just killed him on American soil in front of 20 million people. They probably, I bet you, when that happened, whoever told him to do that probably didn't work anymore. I guarantee that minute when they're all, you did you realize he was on the radio talking to one of the most famous people in paranormal at the time. They weren't expecting that, and that kind of backfired them. But we're talking about aliens right now. This is what they do. And this was show was something I was actually excited for, because I believe it. This is when I have to agree with James on 100%. And people need to quit. And I know the first thing they're gonna say, "Oh, take the politics out of it. Listen to the fucking show." That has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with a member of Congress is saying they're doing this. The ex-president just said they aliens exist. Trump pretty much admitted it without saying it, that it exists. Our actual president. So it's not a lie anymore. We have to start realizing we're not alone, and we're never going to be. So, yes, are we making it? And I guarantee why we're making it, to make for weaponry. You know it has to do with the military, and you know what they're doing. So they can make a human that doesn't die for 200-300 years, and they can heal itself and not die of disease. That's what they're doing. So they can use a weapon of war. It's better than a robot because it's not as expensive. And you can't live forever. But these things can live a couple 100 years. Give it time, and we'll be living about 200 years if we even survive, because I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to integrate human and aliens, and we're going to get all mixed up. I think we already have DNA in us anyway, some of us, but I think we are crossbreedings of whatever they did back then. And I think that they've been doing it, and I won't be surprised they're getting people and capture them. You think that's the only thing they're doing? You That's just the tip of the iceberg. Everybody got to realize what's going on with everything that's going on right now is just to cover up, to show you what no one's paying attention to. And this more shit's going to come out next. You're going to see they're making dragons or something, and it's probably going to be the truth. They want shit like that around, dude, and I know why. If they could get something that could fire, breathe, and destroy things without flying out and killing, like, killing millions of people, and having these things just blow fire, you got 100 of those things. Who's going to stop them? If they're going 600-700 miles an hour, they're just like a jet with a flamethrower. It's you're who's going to stop them? And you have jets on top of that protecting them, and you put armor on them and stuff that can't blow them up easily. You're gonna and have weaponry on them. You'll never be able to stop anything. You'll have these things flying around, but you remember that certain creatures like this are gonna come, and it's uh it's gonna be ugly. This is where we're gonna go wrong, guys, and I'm just gonna tell you, it's just the start of just the beginning. But I have to agree with James, and there you go, brother. That's all I gotta say.
One thing is, or at least should be, undeniably true, and that is that the world that we all believed we lived in is not real. It is a facade. It is make believe. The actual world we live in is a hell of a lot darker and more dangerous and weirder than anyone ever could have imagined. And the problem with stories like this is when you talk about stories like this, people automatically go, "What? That's crazy. It's not real. That's bullshit." And I don't blame you. You know, when I first heard him say it, like I said, I did a double take, dude. I was like, "What?" I mean, I was watching it as it happened, and I was like, "What? Are you what?" You know what I mean? And I do this for a living, and I'm like, "What? That's crazy talk." You know, but I think we're going to learn a lot more. There's stuff that goes on behind the scenes, man, that if the American people knew, they would burn this place to the ground. You know, I mean, it's bad. There's a lot of stuff that not just here, all over the world, and we've seen some of that come out in the Epstein files. And what came out in the Epstein files was just the tiniest bit of information about all of it. And it was horrendous. Eating babies and all kinds of craziness. You know what I mean? That's just the beginning. That's just the tiniest little bit. That's nothing compared to the rest of it. Wait till you find out about the islands where they're hunting people. Wait till you find out about the breeding programs with aliens, apparently. There's all kinds of nutso stuff that's going on that people just aren't aware of. And that's the problem with wanting to be transparent. Because when Trump came in, he said, "Look, I want to release everything. I want to be the most transparent president in history. I want to give you everything." And he's given us more than anybody else ever has. We got the JFK files. We got the MLK files. We got some of the Epstein stuff, not all of it yet, but you're never going to get all the Epstein files. That's just not going to happen. And I don't want it to happen, be honest with you, because you got to realize there's a certain percentage of the Epstein file stuff. You don't want to see that stuff, man. It's CP, it's terrible stuff. It's not stuff that you want to be looking at, you know. Um, the thing I don't agree with is there's some stuff that's not being released because if it gets released, world governments will crumble and you're going to have chaos and anarchy and war and all kinds of craziness going on. That I don't exactly agree with because I think, hey, if you're guilty of this stuff and you're doing this stuff, we need to know your name and you need to face justice. I don't give a damn. If the entire world civilization is propped up by the stuff that was going on in the Epstein files, then let it collapse. It doesn't deserve to be propped up. That stuff's horrible, man. And think about this. If that stuff was going on and we know about it, it's been released, right? A lot of the Epstein stuff's been released. If they're willing to let us know about that stuff, imagine the stuff that they're not willing to let us know about. Think about that. How bad the stuff in the Epstein files was that got released. How shocking it was. How much people just were horrified to learn. And think about the fact that that's the stuff they let you see. That they thought, okay, this we can let go, but all this stuff we can't let them see because this is way too bad. Think about the stuff that they held back because they're afraid that world governments would topple and that wars would happen and stuff. How bad can that stuff be? When you consider what we have actually learned already from what's been released. That's got to be horrifying stuff. Maybe this alien breeding program stuff, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's one of those things that they say we can't release this because, oh my God, people will be furious about this. Who knows? And I think, well, I know there's other stuff not having to do with the Epstein files, but other stuff that the government does that if people knew, it wouldn't be pretty. And the problem goes back to the need to know stuff. The problem goes back to the top secret classifications on stuff. The people that know about the stuff and could prove it, they don't talk about it because they will die if they talk about it. So you're not going to get a whole lot of people that are going to come out and say, "Hey, yeah, this is what's going on here. This, oh my God, they're doing this." That doesn't happen very often. And when it does, you either end up having an accident or you end up fleeing and going and living in another country somewhere where you're protected. You don't just tell truth like that you're not supposed to tell and get away with it. So there's not very many people that are willing to do that because it's not just you got to worry about, it's your family too, you know? So that's why you're not going to get a whole lot of information about some of this stuff. But trust me, there's stuff going on that is unbelievable. And that's why I say the world that we think exists, the world that we think that we live in is not real. It's a facade. It's a storybook. All the stuff that's actually happening is hidden, and they lie about it. They tell you it's not happening. Look how many years they told you that they weren't doing weather modification. Anybody that talked about DARPA, anybody that talked about HARP, anybody that talked about the weather modification and cloud seeding and spraying from jets, all that stuff, you were the tinfoil hat people, remember? They would talk about us and say, "Oh man, those people are crazy." All of that shit's been admitted to now. All of it is officially released. You can go read it on the government's websites. They talk about it openly, that they're controlling the weather, that they're cloud seeding, that they're spraying different toxic chemicals and metals in the air to to make it rain, to help block sunlight, to help global warming, to help make populations more docile. See, that's one that just got skipped over, where they included that with a bunch of other crap, and then everybody just kind of didn't think about that. They just kind of skipped right over it. But look at that. We know for a fact it's been declassified and released that our government just randomly injected black people with syphilis. Eh, just a whole bunch of them for no apparent reason. You know why? Because they just want to see what would happen. That's really why. Let's see what happens long term. Let's give them these shots and tell them it's something else, and we're actually giving them syphilis. And then let's just wait and let's track them through the VA for decades and see what happens to them. See what happens to their brain. That happened. That's real. That's not bullshit. You can look that up. And it's not the only time they've done stuff like that. They've done it over and over and over again, where they just randomly inject people with stuff just to see what happens. I bet you one day we're going to learn that the old pandemic, those jabs that everybody was forced to get, remember that? You couldn't go outside, you couldn't do anything, you'd lose your job if you didn't get it. Wait till you find out about the mRNA vaccines. Wait till you find out what's going on there. Wait till you find out about the weird, long, gooey, clunky shit they're pulling out of people's veins and arteries and stuff, and when they do autopsies on them. Weird, huh? Kind of funny that all of a sudden now we have some brand new thing that's killing people that they just call a sudden death disorder or something like that, where like literally people in their 20s and 30s just dropping dead for no apparent reason. And they're just acting like that's a normal thing that always happened. What do all those people have in common? All of them got it. It's always the same story. So I bet you one day we're going to learn that that was the same kind of thing as when they gave the black people syphilis on purpose. I bet you. They're going to say, well, let's just inject this and let's see what happens. Because you can't honestly believe that a brand new disease came out and within a year, less than a year, they had a vaccine already. When we don't have vaccines for most things. And the real vaccines that actually do something to help, they take years and years and years, sometimes decades to get out. But all of a sudden, we just had it ready to go. Funny, huh? So much stuff, man, is absolutely terrible that's going on. And I think that the reason why things are happening the way they're happening is because a lot of this stuff is going to be released. But I believe that it's going to be dripped out little by little as time goes on. I don't think we're going to get like everything at once because I don't think we can handle everything at once. I think there's so much bad that they have to do a little bit and then wait. Say, okay, we release this. Now what? Oh shit, they want everybody arrested and hung. This ain't working out too good for us. Okay, stop releasing that. And what are we gonna do? Hey Barack, go out there and say there's aliens. Yeah, let's get on aliens. Let's do that. Let's distract them with that shit. So then, oh my God, there's aliens. So then now we're gonna do the alien files thing, where we're gonna get all this information about aliens, and we'll all be paying attention to that for a while. But we're not paying attention to the other stuff that just got released that made us want it to like hang everybody like 5 minutes ago. But now we're over here looking at this shiny ball. And then when that shiny ball turns out, oops, whoop, now they want these people to go away. So we got to distract them with something else. And we're just going to bounce around from crazy thing to crazy thing to crazy thing to crazy thing. And we're not going to be able to focus on any one thing for too long. And that way there's not going to be a whole lot of accountability that's going to come of it, probably. I think that's probably the strategy that's going to be used. I don't agree with it. I think anybody who is doing some of this stuff, especially the more horrible stuff against kids and all that, I think they need to face justice. You know, um, it's kind of weird that Trump talks about declassifying all the alien files after Obama says what he says, right? And then all of a sudden you see in the news all of these people that worked on these projects, all of a sudden they're just ended up gone. One just disappeared. Nobody knows where they went. Another one, somebody just randomly went in their house and shot them up. Another one had a car accident. Like strange, huh? Like all these people that were involved in these top level stuff where they would know what's going on, all of a sudden they're not around anymore to tell you anything. So that makes me think, and when it first happened, I was like, wait a minute, this is weird. Why? What could be so bad in the alien files that they would want to cover it up this bad, where they're going to take people out for it? That doesn't make any sense because, okay, so aliens are real. You say that, okay, no big deal. Everybody's cool with that. It would have to be something like aliens are actually running everything, they control everything, and they just let us pretend that we run things, but it's not true. It has to be something like that, or this alien breeding thing is definitely something that would get people in an uproar. So I bet you there's worse stuff than that going on with aliens that we're going to learn about. And that's what they're trying to hide. And that's why these people are disappearing. Could be, could not be. Who knows? But once again, the final thing I'll say before we wrap up, the problem is the people that have the information are not going to talk about the information because you can't. First of all, anybody who's done any work in that field knows that when you go to work on a project, you have to sign NDAs. Now, an NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. So once you sign that, you are legally bound. You're not allowed to talk about it. If you do talk about it, they can take you to court, and then there's all kinds of ramifications for that. Sometimes it's just massive money that you end up getting sued for, and you got to pay. Sometimes you go to prison. Sometimes it's way worse than that. Sometimes you just disappear if you break an NDA, depending on who you break it with and what you're talking about. So the people that are involved in that stuff have signed these things, and they're not talking about it. So you're not going to get really, really good information. Now, if the government releases it, that's a whole different story because the government can release all the documentation, and then that person doesn't have to speak about the documentation because now it's out there. And once it's out there in the public eye, your NDA no longer applies because you're only bound to not talk about it as long as it's a classified situation. Once it's no longer classified, it's all been declassified, that NDA is null and void at that point, as far as that information goes. Now, any information you have that's still classified, you're still not allowed to talk about. But anything that's been declassified is fair game. So once the alien files do start to come out and that stuff does get declassified by Trump, then you might see some people starting to come out and say what they know. Because at this point now it's being declassified, they can add a lot of information to it about those subjects. That might be why some of these people are disappearing, because they know a hell of a lot about those things, and maybe they know stuff that they don't want, the powers that be don't want getting out. So that's why they're disappearing. And for the record, I'm not saying Trump is ordering any of this. You know what I mean? Trump doesn't even know about any of this. I guarantee it. He doesn't know what's going on with a lot of this stuff. He knows the ballpark. He knows the big picture. And he says, let's declassify it. But he doesn't know all the horrible shit that's going on to make the big picture exist. Does that make sense? I think that's probably the case. And I think probably what's happening right now is the three-letter agencies that are in charge of this stuff are in panic mode. And they're like, oh my God, this crazy Trump is going to declassify all this shit. They're going to find out everything. We got to cover our butts. We got to take all these people out so that they don't know what we've been doing. That's I would bet that. I spent my whole life in doing government stuff and military. I've been around it my whole life. I guarantee you, it's CYA time, and people are covering their butts. You know what I mean? So that could be the reason for some of this too. But who knows? As always, it's up to you to make up your own mind. All we know is what Matt Gates said, that tiny bit of information. Everything else is speculation until we know for sure. I'll be looking forward to the files coming out and seeing some of that stuff declassified. And I'll be interested to see if that breeding program's declassified or not. That'll be interesting because that's one that is going to cause a lot of problems. if that turns out to be true and it gets declassified, people are going to have to go to jail for that, in my opinion. But I'm going to throw it back over to old boy, let him give his shout outs, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you guys for joining us on Spotify. You guys can watch Staring in the Abyss and We're Screwed. We did a show last week with me and my wife's, and James was the host for We're Screwed. You guys can check it out on there and YouTube. Also, you can go to James Harris's YouTube and subscribe. Like I said, you can get merchandise at Staring in the Abyss, teespring.com. You guys can get shirts, all kinds of stuff. All Staring, We're Screwed, Tells the Abyss, Evil Without a Face, House of Ashes. I'm going to start putting on that, guys. I own the rights to the House of Ashes, so I can make whatever I want shirts, and I have about 30 of them I want to do and start selling them. Um, um, I might even I already asked to get one quote. His quote he does, I might copyright that so no one can steal it. And it's only $30 or $60 if I do it. So we could keep that. Yeah, it'll be under the house, but he could say whatever he wants. I don't give a damn. But I'll get his saying so no one can steal it. And you'll just hear it when we get off it, when we close it. It is the closing line. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's April, guys. The second. Um, Starting to get up to summertime, man. It's getting there. Spring's here. I hope you guys enjoyed your holidays. We've started getting back a month ago, and James got his voice back, and usually for about a month during that time he gets that sickness. So we get used to it. Same damn time, usually January, December, holidays anyway. So you guys didn't miss not a lot. But I will tell you this: one day you'll see us in one of these shows, and we're going to tell you we told you so. And that's all we're doing is trying to tell you the truth or trying to tell you what we know. Doesn't mean we're 100% facts. If we're wrong, we'll admit it. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show, Misfits, Sugarlays, Monster Lovers, and Demon Hunters. I fucking love you. From the legendary old boy, have a good night.
Yeah, every year after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, I get sick for one, maybe 2 days, but usually it's one day. And the problem is that one day of like having a chest cold, I feel better the next day. And I'm not like coughing and hacking and doing anything horrible. But that one day kills my voice. And then, like, literally, I'll be just a whisper for like a week or two. Can't even really talk. And then after that week or two, my voice will start to come back, but I can't do long periods of time talking without it cracking and going to hell. And I don't know why it happens. It happens to me every year. It's a weird ass thing. It started like 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, is when it first happened to me. Because I used to never get sick at all, ever. And then 5 or 6 years ago, I got like a chest cold, and it lasted like 1 or 2 days, and then my voice left. And it seems like every year now, around the same time, I get that same chest cold, and 1 or 2 days, I'm great again, and I'm running around doing everything like normal, but I just can't talk. I just have no voice for like a month almost, and it sucks. But anyway, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Hope that you enjoyed the show. And we'll catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye bye.